When Geddy Lee, Lifeson, and Anika Nilles stepped onto the stage for the opening night of Rush's 50-something tour, fans expected one thing above all else: a celebration of Rush history. And in many ways, that's exactly what they got. The first show featured classics like Limelight, Subdivisions, Free Will, The Spirit of Radio, Tom Sawyer, and Working Man. Fans also heard deeper cuts such as Bravado, Caravan, and La Via Strangiato, along with emotional tributes to Neil Peart throughout the evening. Suddenly, fans found themselves divided. One side argued that Geddy and Alex were doing exactly what Rush has always done, taking risks, changing things up, and avoiding predictable greatest hits shows. The other side felt that some essential songs should never disappear from the setlist, especially during what may be the band's most important tour since their return after an 11-year absence. What made the argument even more interesting was that the band had already hinted this would happen. Before the tour began, Geddy Lee explained that the group was preparing dozens of songs and planned to rotate material from night to night rather than play the exact same show every evening. But knowing it would happen and seeing favorite songs disappear are two very different things. And as more setlist emerged, fans started noticing a pattern. Some classic tracks seemed locked in every night, while others were suddenly fighting for survival. The real question became, did Rush make a brilliant artistic decision, or did they accidentally leave out the very songs fans wanted most? As fans compared setlists from the first few shows of the 50-something tour, a surprising realization began to spread across social media and fan forums. Some of Rush's most beloved songs were either missing entirely or appearing only on certain nights. For many concertgoers, this wasn't just a minor detail. These were songs that had become part of the band's identity over decades of touring. One of the biggest talking points involved the band's progressive-era material. While songs like 2012 made dramatic appearances during certain shows, other fan favorites from albums such as A Farewell to Kings, Hemispheres, and Permanent Waves were not always present. Some fans argued that if this tour was meant to celebrate the full history of Rush, then more of those classic epics deserved permanent spots in the setlist. Others focused on the opposite issue. They believed the band was still leaning too heavily on familiar radio staples. Yes, audiences loved hearing Tom Sawyer, Limelight, and The Spirit of Radio. Those songs consistently generated some of the loudest reactions of the night. But longtime followers wondered whether those tracks were taking valuable space away from deeper cuts that had rarely been performed over the years. The debate became especially interesting because Rush has always had one of the most diverse fan bases in rock music. Some fans discovered the band through the progressive masterpieces of the 1970s. Others became fans during the synthesizer-heavy 1980s era. Still others connected with the harder-edged material from the 1990s and 2000s. No matter what songs Geddy Lee, Lifeson, and Anika Nilles chose, somebody was going to feel disappointed. And that may have been the biggest challenge facing the band. Imagine trying to build a 2.5-hour concert from a catalog containing hundreds of songs. Every addition automatically creates a subtraction. Every fan favorite that stays means another fan favorite must go. Still, the criticism continued to grow. Many fans pointed out that this was not just another tour. It was Rush's first major return since the loss of Neil Peart and their first large-scale tour in more than a decade. Because of that, expectations were unusually high. Fans weren't simply evaluating whether the performances were good. They were evaluating whether the set list properly represented Rush's entire legacy. And as more nights passed, another question emerged. What if the controversial song choices weren't actually about fan demand at all? What if they were being influenced by something much more practical? Something involving Geddy Lee, Lifeson, and especially their new drummer, Anika Nilles. As the debate over the 50-something tour set list intensified, many fans focused on one simple question: why were certain songs missing? But behind the scenes, the answer may have been more complicated than most people realized. Rush has never been an easy band to perform. Even during their peak years, their concerts demanded extraordinary precision. Complex time signatures, rapid transitions, lengthy instrumental sections, and demanding vocal parts made many Rush songs incredibly difficult to reproduce live. And now, for the first time, Geddy Lee and Lifeson were performing those songs without Neil Peart behind the drum kit. That alone changed everything. Anika Nilles is widely respected as one of the most technically gifted drummers of her generation. Her ability to handle difficult rhythms and intricate arrangements is one reason she earned the opportunity to join the tour. Yet replacing Neil Peart was never going to be a simple task. No drummer could simply step in and recreate every detail of a catalog that Neil spent decades building. Because of that reality, fans began wondering whether some songs were omitted because they presented unique challenges in a live setting. Certain Rush compositions require precise synchronization between all three musicians. Others feature long instrumental passages that demand absolute concentration for extended periods. Even songs that seem straightforward on a studio album can become much more complicated when performed night after night on a major tour. Then there was Geddy Lee's voice. Over the years, Geddy has been open about the challenges of performing some of Rush's highest vocal parts as he has gotten older. Many classic songs were originally recorded when he was in his 20s and 30s. Decades later, maintaining that same vocal range across an entire tour requires careful planning. That means song selection becomes more than just a popularity contest. It becomes a balancing act. The band must consider audience expectations, musical flow, physical endurance, and overall performance quality. In that context, some controversial omissions start to make more sense. A song might be beloved by fans, yet still be difficult to include consistently if it creates challenges elsewhere in the show. But not everyone accepted that explanation. Many fans argued that if anyone could tackle these songs, it was Anika Nilles. After all, she had spent years building a reputation for mastering some of the most demanding material in modern drumming, which raised another fascinating question. If technical difficulty wasn't the primary reason for the rotating set list, what was? The answer may reveal something much bigger about what Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson actually wanted this tour to be, and that vision may have surprised even the most dedicated Rush fans. By the time the first few shows of the 50-something tour were complete, it became clear that Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson were not trying to create a traditional greatest hits concert. In fact, they seemed to be doing the exact opposite. Most legacy bands eventually settle into a predictable formula. They identify the biggest hits, lock them into the set list, and play nearly the same show every night. That approach keeps casual fans happy. But Rush was never a band known for taking the easy route. Throughout their career, Geddy, Alex, and Neil Peart built a reputation for constantly evolving. They changed their sound, experimented with new technology, and challenged their audience in ways that many rock bands never dared. For decades, Rush fans expected surprises. And that mindset appears to have carried into the 50-something tour. The decision also created something modern concert tours often lack: uncertainty. Fans attending multiple shows suddenly had a reason to compare notes. What would be played tonight? Would a rare song return? Would a favorite disappear? That mystery generated excitement that extended far beyond the arena itself. However, there was another layer to the story. This wasn't simply a tour celebrating Rush's history. It was also a tour celebrating survival. After Neil Peart's passing, many fans believed they would never see Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson perform Rush music on a major stage again. The 50-something tour changed that. Because of this, some observers felt the rotating set list was designed to highlight the band's entire journey rather than just its biggest commercial successes. Instead of focusing solely on radio hits, the set list explored different eras of Rush's career. One night might emphasize progressive rock, another might spotlight later material. A different show could feature songs that rarely received attention during previous tours. From that perspective, the controversial song choices start to look less like mistakes and more like deliberate artistic decisions. But deliberate decisions are not always popular decisions. As ticket holders continued debating the set list online, a new question emerged. What were actual audiences saying after attending the concerts? Were the complaints coming from people inside the arenas, or mostly from fans analyzing set lists from home? The answer revealed a surprising gap between online criticism and real-world reactions. As online debates continued to rage about the 50-something tour set list, an interesting pattern began to emerge. The loudest criticism often came from fans studying the set lists on paper. But fans who were actually attending the shows frequently had a different perspective. The excitement of witnessing that reunion often outweighed concerns about which specific songs made the set list. When concertgoers shared their experiences afterward, many described the performances as celebrations rather than nostalgia trips. Fans praised the chemistry between Geddy and Alex, the energy of the band, and Anika Nilles' remarkable ability to handle Rush's demanding material. Even songs that generated controversy online frequently received enthusiastic reactions in the venue. That doesn't mean everyone agreed with the set list choices. Far from it. Some attendees still left wishing they had heard a particular favorite song. Others hoped certain deep cuts would become permanent additions rather than occasional surprises. But there was a noticeable difference between disappointment and dissatisfaction. Most fans seemed excited by the possibility that future shows could be completely different. In fact, the rotating format created a unique situation. Instead of feeling frustrated by songs they missed, many fans began discussing which future concerts they might attend. The uncertainty became part of the attraction. For decades, Rush fans have appreciated complexity, unpredictability, and experimentation. Ironically, the very thing creating controversy online may have been the same thing making the tour special. Still, one question remained unanswered. When history looks back on the 50-something tour years from now, how will this setlist experiment be remembered? Will fans view it as a brilliant way to honor Rush's enormous catalog? Or will they remember it as a missed opportunity to deliver the definitive celebration of the band's greatest songs? The answer may depend on how people define success. And that brings us to the final verdict. So after all the debates, the online arguments, and the endless comparisons between set lists, we're left with one final question. Did Geddy Lee, Alex Lifeson, and Anika Nilles make a mistake with the 50-something tour set list? The answer depends entirely on what you believe the tour was supposed to accomplish. If your goal was to create the ultimate greatest hits package, then some fans would probably say yes. No matter how long the concert lasted, there were always going to be beloved songs left out. Rush's catalog is simply too large, too diverse, and too important to fit into a single evening. Every omission felt significant because so many songs carry deep personal meaning for different fans. For those fans, hearing a favorite track missing from the set list could feel like a genuine loss. But if the goal was to celebrate the full spirit of Rush, the answer becomes very different. Rush was never a band that played it safe. Throughout their entire career, they challenged expectations. They changed musical directions when it would have been easier to repeat old formulas. They took risks when other bands chose comfort. The rotating set list followed that same philosophy. Instead of delivering a predictable show every night, Geddy and Alex created something that felt alive. Fans couldn't know exactly what they would hear. Rare songs could appear at any moment. Deep cuts could suddenly return after years of absence. That sense of possibility became part of the experience. And then there's Anika Nilles. She entered one of the most difficult situations any musician could face, helping perform the music of a band whose drummer is widely considered one of the greatest of all time. Rather than turning the concerts into a tribute act frozen in the past, the band chose to move forward while still honoring Neil Peart's legacy. That decision required courage. In many ways, the set list controversy may actually be evidence that the tour succeeded. People only argue this passionately about music that matters to them. Fans weren't debating because they had stopped caring. They were debating because Rush's catalog means so much to so many people, and perhaps that's the ultimate compliment. More than 50 years after the band's formation, fans are still passionately discussing which songs deserve a place on stage. Very few bands ever achieve that level of devotion. So did they make a mistake? Maybe for some fans. But from a broader perspective, the 50-something tour accomplished something far more important. It reminded the world why Rush remains one of rock music's most respected and beloved bands. And if people are still arguing about the set list long after the final encore, that may be proof that Geddy Lee, Alex Lifeson, and Anika Nilles made exactly the right choice. Because the best Rush concerts were never just about the songs that were played.